CTE Truth Series, Video 2. The merger of three-angle aiming with center-to-edge sighting. How Houle, you could say, had two bodies of work that merged together to form his ultimate aiming system, center-to-edge. He had the aiming information, which can be found in his three-angle document, and then outside of his three-angle document, he talked about sighting. He rarely ever mixed the two. Very rare. I know of one instance that I mentioned in my book where the two are together. Now, yesterday we looked at aim lines. Today we're going to focus primarily on sighting. Like I said, outside of Houle's three-angle document for aiming, he talked about sighting, but he didn't mix aiming with sighting. Now, in his three-angle document, he talked about the 15, 30, 45, and even the 60. But which one of these characters did he decide that he wanted to use for teaching sighting? He decided he wanted to use the 30 because it had an easy description. Yes, it has an easy description. Center to edge. So he didn't have to worry about explaining the 15 or explaining the 45. The 30 was the way to go. And that's the way he went. He would tell his understudies, whether one-on-one or on the telephone or on the aiming forums, to see centered edge. Centered edge makes all shots. Well, it handles nearly all shots. He would ask Landon and me to see the perfect center-to-edge perception. He knew that if we were to see the center-to-edge perception, that it would look right. Well, just looking right with one line is not enough, but he knew that it would look right, and he knew that it would work. You see, there's something more behind the scenes than just a center-to-edge line here. When the center-to-edge perception looks right, there's an aim line that goes with it. For this left cut perspective, we have left cue ball edge to object ball B. Now the perception is really starting to take shape, and we can know more about it because we have two lines to work with. Now I have two lines. Boom. It can work with one line. But the knowledge of the aim line adds to its strength. So what is the center-to-edge sight line for? The center-to-edge sight line is for dialing in the aim line. Now, where do you need your vision in order to dial in these two lines? Basically, you need, and Hal said this, you need to stand behind the aim line. Now, I don't mean to put your belly button behind the aim line. That's not what I'm talking about. Stand behind the aim line in such a way that you can see along the sight line. So that means you're going to have to angle your head to the left for left cut perspectives. Where does that put your vision? That places your vision in the parallax position of inside quarter cue ball to the outer quarter for the object ball. So that's the parallax line. Now, when I angle my head to the left, my nose, you know, Hal told Landon and I, he put a cue ball right up to his nose, and he said, this won't work. Center to edge won't work if you put your nose behind the center of the cue ball. It has to be turned to the side. Now, I'll never forget him doing that. So when I turn my head to the side, I'm using my mid-face vision center right here in a very strong way My right eye is dominant for the sight line, my left eye is dominant for the aim line, and I have the parallax vision, the parallax connection with my mid-face vision center. Now, why do I say mid-face vision center? Because we all basically see the same when we're at arm's length away from the cue ball object ball relationship. See, when we're 4 or 5 feet back, or even 6 feet back, our eyes triangulate that. We all tend to see the same. So, in this position here, it's my mid-face vision center that has a lot going on across its lateral scope from my left eye all the way to my right eye. So, center to edge aiming is very broadening in nature. Whereas typical conventional aiming, such as ghost ball, fractions, or contact points, is limiting in nature because it seeks to have the individual align in such a way that their nose is behind center cue ball, or their strongest line of sight is behind the center of the cue ball. One reason that center to edge aiming is different and odd is because your vision is turned toward the cutting edge of the cue ball. It's very odd at first, so it's not an overnight study. Now, as far as the speed of seeing the visuals, I'm certainly an expert at it, a master at it. I've been doing it for years, but I can see these visuals in a matter of a split second. Our visual intelligence is stronger, faster than the fastest supercomputers in the world. I mean, in a split second, I can see these visuals. Now, when I see a visual, my visual perception of this 30-degree alignment is made up of these 3 lines. So I can look at a perception, and I can be as conscious as I want to of any one of these 3 lines when I'm at ball address or not. I can just see the perception, and the lines are in the background as a subconscious awareness. The more you work with it, the lower the level of consciousness that you have to devote to this. Ideally we want to be in the zone. We want to walk up and see something in the zone. We don't want to, the old paralysis by analysis kind of thing. You've got to separate your learning from your competition, folks. When you're learning these lines, in order to learn perception, you do that on the practice table. Over time. And then when you compete, you go into your competition with one goal. It's not for learning, it's for competing to win, not to see lines during competition. So, what a student shouldn't do is think they're going to get center to edge lessons this week, and then in 3 weeks they're going to play in the league championship or they're going to go to the US Open. That's not the way it works. Because you're going to reprogram your visual intelligence for how to see cue ball object ball relationships for the goal of putting those balls in the hole. That's what this game is all about, is getting them in the hole. Yeah, you've got to control Whitey, but you've got to get the balls in the hole. I don't know any games where you don't have to get the balls in the hole to win. So this visual is the one that really gets the praise as being the big deal, the kingpin of the system, the 30. And Hal used to say, center to edge makes all shots. What did he mean by that? If center to edge makes all shots, why do we have to have the 15 and the 45? We do have to have them, by the way. But why did he say that the 30, the center to edge, makes all shots? Because it does, practically. If I place a cue ball here, and an object ball here, a 30-degree perception does not work for making this ball in this pocket. If you go by manual pivoting, or if you try to arrive at a center cue ball that's defined, that's objective for pocketing that ball, not going to happen. And I can tell you this, it's not very, years ago when I would work with very strong players and I would have them to line up to center to edge, that was a mistake. But one of my good qualities is that I have a lot of stick-to-itiveness to what I do. So I made mistakes, but over time I learned from my mistakes. A straight-in shot is a 15-degree perception. So how can we justify the idea here that center to edge makes all shots or handles nearly all shots? This alignment right here that is straight in offers for me a 3-rail bank in the side. It offers me a perfect right edge to be, center to left object ball edge for a perfect alignment for a 3-rail bank. Now that does not mean that the system is giving me the correct speed and the correct spin. I have to do that myself. I have to do the stroke delivery. But pool is a visual system, and CTE gives you the visual. It gives you the platform. It gives you the foundation. Now, as to whether you have to make any adjustments to that bank, maybe, maybe not. Many times you do have to make adjustments for bank. A little bit with your bridge V, maybe you have to adjust the sight line a little bit. More on that in another Truth Series video. But the CTE visual for the 30 will make most all cue ball, object ball relationships into one of the right angles on a regulation table. And that's why Hal would say that. He was inviting a little bit of intrigue into what he was saying, and he certainly succeeded at that. Let's look at the 15-degree perception. The sight line for the 15-degree perception is center to 1 tick past object ball C. There's your center to edge sight line. It doesn't have to be out here to the edge. There's an edge right here on the object ball. There's a tick right here on the object ball. The positions have just changed. The process is the same. So what is the aim line for the 15? Left cue ball edge to object ball A. What does the sight line do? It dials in the aim line. What is center to edge sighting for? What is center to edge for? It's for dialing in aim lines. The two domains have merged. That perception looks real good, but it looks a lot better when you add your parallax alignment of inside cue ball quarter to object ball core. Now I'm looking at 3 lines for my perception. Now when I'm learning this, I'm going to stand, here's the way I would learn it or teach it to you. I'm going to stand behind the aim line in such a way as to angle my head to the left for seeing along the sight line, and then I can notice the parallax position, the parallax line. So you do work with the lines systematically for learning them. But it is such a joy when you can take these lines and transform them into perceptions that you just see in a split second. I can see these lines in motion. See, I can see that there it is. Boom, I see it that quick. It's not like you have to lock in right here and say, there's one line, there's another line, here's another line. That won't work in competition. You have to put this together in the practice room. You're reprogramming your visual intelligence. Let's take a look at the 45. the 45 can be characterized as a thin cut. The 45 offers us thin cuts. The aim line for a, as we discussed yesterday, is left cue ball edge to 1/16 of an inch shy of object ball C. Now I might as well explain to you now as to how I derived at a 1/16 of an inch adjustment to object ball C. I've done all my work visually at the table. I say 99.99% of my work has been done with my eyes, my visual intelligence at the table. That's where my work has been, at the table. If it were otherwise, I would not be here. We would not be here. So, Hal did not use the numbers of 15, 30, and 49. The 45 is, you might say, close to the fractional number of 49, which is a quarter ball overlap, a quarter ball hit. So what I did is put this one ball, or the object ball, on the 45-degree line between the side pocket and the corner pocket. Now, if I line this up to a 49-degree angle, quarter to quarter, then I had an overcut to the center of the pocket. You see, the 49-degree angle doesn't connect with that pocket because that's a 45-degree angle. So if I line up a 49, it's going to be thin. So what I did was I carefully worked with this and made an adjustment of 1/16 of an inch until I had a satisfactory, dead-on perception, the best of my ability to produce, to that corner pocket. So the 45-degree perception is left cue ball edge to 1/16 of an inch short of that line. So that's how I got that. Now, the problem with the 45-degree sight line is that the sight line, or the sight point, the sight line, which at the end of it is a sight point, is 1/2 of an inch in space. Well, when you're looking at something that's in space, then that's a tough ordeal. So, thank goodness for the parallax line. The parallax line for the 45 runs from inside quarter to an adjusted 1/16 of an inch in from the outer edge of the ball. So there's your aim line. There's your sight line for the SP45 sight point. And here we have the parallax line. So it's like I said earlier, 2 lines is better than 1. So we have 2 lines that are on the object ball now, and a sight line that's in space. So when you're working with the 45 and the 60, you can make a little card, much, much smaller than this, and just put it right beside the object ball with a little dot on it. That's a 1/2 inch in space, and you can shoot the ball and the card will fall over, and you can learn where that sight line is, that sight point is out in space. So we have 2 lines here. Hal made a comment, a public comment, about parallax concerning the 45. He was doing a contrast. He said amateurs want to put their nose behind the center of the cue ball. And he said it's no wonder that players have great difficulty in reaching their fullest potential with that kind of alignment. Gould was touting the alignment of being able to see the inside quarter to the outer edge of the object ball for 45s when he made that comment. So, when you work with a 45 using a little training card, you can learn where that sight line is in space. The more you work with it, you can learn where it is. You know, you can have a real strong idea where it is, but you still can't see it. But you have two other lines that you can work with. Two lines are better than one, and two lines can correct the third one. But what I will tell you is, this perception won't look right. It only looks right and correct for one place in space. That's it. If you get your aim line right and you get your parallax alignment correct, then this alignment will most likely be correct. You can't see it. Now you can see it in practice if you set up your card, which I highly recommend that you do. I did a ton of that for myself. So let's don't lose sight. Let's don't lose sight of the idea that if I were to set this ball up right here and put this object ball right here, I hope you can see that from the camera's view, that gives me a 45-degree relationship to this pocket. So center to edge makes all shots. Here's your real workhorses for centered edge aiming, the 15 and the 30. So the 15-degree perception actually gives me two right angles. It gives me a bank cross corner using one alignment, and then using the other alignment, we get a 3-rail bank in the side. So I probably could use a 30-degree alignment for a 3-rail bank around the table. So even though this 45 represents a very thin cut, and that's how I would play it into that pocket. I wouldn't risk the bank over the cut. But but all alignments do offer an objective aim line, because you can always resort to the 15 and the 30. So I want to emphasize that. It's important to have that little nugget of information in your mind as far as understanding this system. Okay, now the spotlight is on the 60. The 60 is a toughie, because there's going to be two lines that are out in space. I'm going to move this sight line over right here. I think I did mention to you that the 45-degree sight point is 1/2 of an inch out in space. The sight point for a 60-degree perception, or the sight line, runs to 27/32 of an inch out in space. And when you have a practice card, that's what you should use, is a dot that is 27/32 of an inch out in space away from the outer cutting edge of the object ball. Now, where's your aim line for 60s? Inside left cue ball edge to right object ball 1/8. Now the sight line runs from center cue ball to 27/32 of an inch out in space. So there's your aim line. There's the sight line. Now the parallax line runs from inside cue ball quarter once again to halfway in between the outer edge of the ball and where the location is for the SP45 sight point. it's actually 1/32 of an inch off. But when you're looking at an invisible point in space, 1/32 of an inch is negligible. So this is your parallax line, and I do use this line. To this day, I use this parallax line on some of my 60s. My vision. I use as much of my vision as I can to gather input from a cue ball object ball relationship. I've got the aim line, the parallax line, and the sight line. I'm using all that for my alignment. Now, Hal Hill used to say concerning the 60, which he described as extremely thin cuts, as compared to the 45 being a thin cut, this is an extremely thin cut. So I use those lines. But what Hal would say about 60s often would be that don't go for that iffy cut shot, play safe and let the other guy make the mistake. That was his mindset concerning very thin cut shots. Play safe and let the other guy make the mistake. Sometimes that's a very good strategy. At other times you have to go for the shot. It just depends on the game situation. Now, I won't discuss this here in much detail. I won't mention it much in my Truth series, but there is a transition whereby a 60-degree visual turns into an edge-to-edge alignment. You're not going to just whack in every thin cut, extremely thin cut, with a 60. Sometimes you have to adjust from left cue ball edge to right object ball edge, and those shots for sure. We can certainly make a case that for those kinds of shots, maybe the bank is better, or maybe the safety play is better, but sometimes you have to go for the edge-to-edge type cuts. So this is a pretty good look at the merger that occurs between three-angle aiming and center-to-edge sighting. You aim with the edge of the cue ball, you sight with the center of the cue ball. This all occurs from an offset from the parallax viewing position. So I'm not behind the sight line, I'm not behind the aim line. I'm clearly able to make my parallax connection at ball address. My head is always angled toward the cutting edge of the cue ball. So this wraps up the information for video 2 in my Truth series. I look forward to seeing you again in Truth series video 3. Thank you.